You're locked into the summer series with your man Louie T here on the Louie T Network. As the temperatures get hot outside, so does the content here on the Louie T Network. So stay cool. Your man Louie T is talking to some of the best in the business, talking National Football League. Enjoy the summer series. All right, so we're back with the summer series. This is a big one and one that I've been looking forward to. This is a great follow on social media. He's got an excellent book that we're going to talk about a ton on today's show. If you're looking for someone that is among the best in the business talking NFL using analytics to do so, they say that numbers don't lie, but people do. Well, this guy doesn't lie because he uses numbers. Want everybody to welcome Warren Sharp to the show of Sharp Football Analysis. Thank you for joining me on the program, man. How is everything going? You're a busy, busy man these days.
I am. It's going great, though. It's fun to be able to share work that you created with the world. As you know, being a host yourself and generating content. And this book, it was 586 pages, researching every single team and outlining what my expectations are for them this year, using a educated methodology that relies upon what we saw last year, what has changed since that point in time, and then what they're going to be facing this upcoming season. And obviously, the Washington Commanders are a very exciting team to discuss. And so I was able to spend a lot of time researching some interesting things about that football team. And now that book is done, and it's ready to be put into the audience's hands. I mean, this is what it looks like. This is 586 pages right here. So this could be careful how heavy you drop this on your coffee table. You might break something.
That's right.
But this book definitely is a labor of love, and I'm excited to be done with it. And started it in March. Now we're done. End of June, into July. Now we get to talk about it with people such as yourself. So just excited to join you today and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So before we get to the Commanders and things that I found interesting inside of that book, that this extensive catalog that you've put together, I'm a big site guy, so I always like to know the why behind things. So, like, when did you know that football, but more specifically analytics, was your passion? Like, this is what I want to do.
Well, my origin story is really interesting. We could spend all podcast on it, so we'll try not to do that. But more or less, I loved watching football when I was a youngster with my dad, and he would always get frustrated whether he was watching the Commanders or the Steelers, because those were the two teams that he won in each conference.
Mm-hmm.
When they did something bad in a game, he would just turn off the TV and walk out. He couldn't stand to watch them play poorly. And I started thinking about, well, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? What could they be doing differently? And that was when I was, in elementary school. But I didn't really get into the analytics of everything until I was in college, when I was looking to try to use it from a sports betting perspective to build models using data and statistics to try to predict outcomes of games. And so I was then trying to figure out, what are the most important indicators towards winning games or losing games? What statistics matter more than others? And so I spent a lot of time on that, and I spent a lot of time working, researching, and developing the models, and then using them to try to forecast things. And when I got out of college, I majored in engineering. I studied civil engineering at school. I went and got my engineering training license, and then eventually my professional engineering license. But I was sort of moonlighting on football statistics and data and sports betting off to the side, started writing about it more and more and more. I started publishing things, built a website, sharpfootballanalysis.com, started sharing some more information up there. And eventually, through some connections and mutual friends, some different teams started reaching out to me, and they wanted me to do a little bit of work for them as an outside consultant. So I went to this place, I went to that place, met up with some different teams. One team actually wanted me to work full time for them. This was about after another year or two went by. I would obviously have to work 365 days a year on site, working with them, heading up one of their analytics departments. And that would have been a dream come true for maybe younger me. But at the time, business was booming, sports betting was legalized, and I was going to be taking a pretty substantial pay cut just to be working for the team. And so I decided that I would rather continue posting online, on Twitter at the time it was called, and everything like that, rather than working for a team where you'd have to go dark and you'd have to just work full time for them. So that's pretty much how I still have my website, Sharp Football Analysis. I still have the book. I'm involved in sports betting. I still do some consulting for certain play callers or now some of those play callers have become head coaches, off to the side as a consultant, an outside consultant. But I'm just working in a variety of fields for the NFL, writing, analyzing it, recording videos, and so I love doing it. I'm very passionate about it, much like yourself, and love sharing what I have found. And what I like to share is the more unique things that I have found. I don't like to be the 25th person to tell you the same exact statistic over and over. I like to find the unique angles that most other people aren't talking about and try to bring those to the forefront of the discussion.
I swear that you speak such a beautiful language and it's so fluent in so many different ways. You can speak to so many different audiences. You can speak to the degenerate better, right? Gambler. And I mean that as a term of endearment. You can speak to the lay fan that maybe doesn't even watch sports, but they play in several fantasy football leagues. And then you can speak to the nerds and people like myself who just consume this in ample doses, probably unhealthy amount of doses of the NFL and all of the numbers and the different things that you can get into. And one of the things that I found really interesting with your conversation, but before I even get to that, let me ask you this, because again, I'm a psych guy. I like to get into people's heads. You seem aggressive in your approach when you do things. In the book, you talked about defensive coordinators should be aggressive to start the season blitzing because it's the time where you can be most successful doing so and kind of catch offenses off guard. You talk about wanting to be aggressive early in games, get out to a fast start, get out to a lead, and force teams to kind of change their game plan that they came into the game with. Are you, Warren Sharp, a receive the toss guy if you win it? I'm a big coin toss guy. I mapped out the Commanders' 20 coin tosses last year and what they did with it and this, that, and the third. I love the coin toss because I'm a big proponent of deferring to the second half. Are you a receive the coin toss guy if you win it?
Well, I think it works for different teams in different situations, but in general, I want to start my offense off with a lead, and I'd like to start early in a game doing that. And so I don't necessarily advocate one way or another. I will tell you this little story. Shared some information with the Green Bay Packers about the fact that LaFleur was so much better when they started the game with the football than when they were deferring. When they were leading at the first half at halftime, they were so much better than when they were trailing. And so at halftime, and just their ability to come back and win games and play from the front and how important that was for LaFleur and that offense. And so I wrote up a lot of analysis on this. This was probably 2 years ago. And at a certain point in the season, after I published that, maybe it was like week 9, 10 or so, they literally started receiving. Anytime they won the toss, they would ask for the football. And if the other team, usually most teams defer. And so if they lost the toss, they would then get the football for the vast majority of the times as well. And that offense ended up taking off. And the one thing is, it's up to your mentality. In general, I have found that more defensive-minded head coaches are probably better off deferring because they are more reluctant to allow their offensive coordinator just start with the barn doors wide open and call whatever you want on that first, 15 minutes to go in the first half. You just got the ball at the 25, and now what are we going to call? Oh, well, let's come out. Let's play conservative. Let's make sure we don't turn the ball over. Let's not make any self-inflicted wounds to start the game. If you're going to play like that, if you're going to make your offense coordinator play like that, then you're definitely better off deferring 100% of the time. However, if you're willing to attack the game aggressively as if you're midway through the second quarter on that very first possession of the game, then absolutely you should be trying to look to take the ball first, move the ball down the field, and score points and play from a position of strength rather than trying to come from a position of weakness later on in the game.
It's funny that you bring up 2023 and the Green Bay Packers in particular, because I only have one instance in where I am a firm believer in deferring or accepting the ball first if I win the toss and receiving. And they were one of the best examples of this. In 2023, they went to Dallas in Wild Card Weekend, if you recall, and they took the football, punched Dallas in the mouth, opening possession, went down and scored. And really, that game was never the same. And Dallas was a front-running team that year. And so I feel like if you can get to a front-running team early, punch them in the mouth, score first, put them on their heels, put them in a position that they're uncomfortable in, you can jump them. And I felt like they did that beautifully in that 2023 playoff game against the Cowboys. So that's really interesting that you brought up the Packers in that scenario. So in the book, let's get to the 2025 football preview that you've put together. And it's almost 600 page masterpiece. You talk about inequalities of an NFL schedule. I could literally talk to you about this all day long. I found this to be so fascinating because I love talking about the NFL schedule. I think it's one of those things that exists within the margins. People don't talk about it enough. So you talked about the different things with the schedule and how it sets up imbalance in certain instances. When did that get on your radar? And how big of a deal do you really believe it to be?
So it's funny. I can't reveal all the things because some of the times I've signed NDAs and whatnot with certain teams, but there was an owner who contacted his GM. They knew the GM worked with me. This is before a lot of teams had like really robust in-house analytics departments. We're talking like 2016, 2017. And this particular owner and his GM were extraordinarily frustrated with the fact that they had to play Thursday night games on the road. And they were just like, every year it seems like we're having to play these Thursday night games on the road, and they were disappointed with their general lack of home primetime games. They wanted more home primetime games. So I went and I did an analysis of the performance of road teams on Thursday Night Football, and obviously found that it's not great. I did a analysis of home teams on Thursday Night Football, found that it's substantially better, especially if that's the better team. The favorite on Thursday Night Football is the better team. In general, just league-wide for the listeners out there, on a short week, it massively favors the better team. If teams are on 3 days rest or 4 days rest, it will favor the better team. Why? Because the longer, that's why there's some fun upsets in Super Bowls. The longer that an underdog has to try to tweak things, change things, throw in trick plays, try to figure out how to defend your offense a little bit better, that's going to benefit them. The shorter amount of time, those teams can't pull out all these tricks, pull out all these stops. They're doing their vanilla cookie cutter kind of offensive game plan, defensive game plan, and it definitely favors the team that has better coaching overall, better play calling overall, and better players overall, the Jimmys and Joes out on the field. And so for that reason, the shorter time frames, layovers, favor the better team. But the home teams that don't have to travel, it favors them even more so. And so I did some analysis about on all of those things, and presented as well the amount of games that they were playing at home versus on the road on primetime. And they submitted that to the league office. What I gave them, they submitted it to the league office, and nothing happened that year. But the next year they started to get a little bit more love, their direction with some of those things. And what it sort of indicated to me, and then there was another team that I was consulting with that I was finding some other unique aspects. I can't share specifically what they were with their particular schedule, which in one case there was two things. One case was identified by their GM, and one case I found that I brought to their attention. And so they threw a stink about it, gave it to the league office and that sort of thing. And what I then began to realize is that this schedule you can manipulate it a ton. They're just trying to find schedules that work for what they're doing from a TV perspective. And it's not necessarily fair. Even So the people at home are understand, you know this obviously, but the NFL doesn't control who you're going to play. They control when you're going to play those teams. Each year, the who of who you're going to play is based upon what division you're in. And then it's a rotational basis, just a cyclical thing. You're always going to play, like if you finished in third place, you're going to play the other three third place finishers within your own conference. And then you're going to rotate. You're going to play one division from outside your conference. Like let's say for the Commanders, you're going to play maybe the AFC North one year, and you're going to play the NFC West one year. And so that's basically how, and then you play your own divisional games. There are 6 of those. And then you're going to play the other teams that finished, in your case, second place in the NFC East. You're going to play the other second place finishers in the NFC conference. So that's the way the schedule works. They don't control that. Now, you and I both know that there's a wide disparity in the strength of schedule of the opponents that you play, simply based upon the fact that things aren't even within the NFL. It's not like baseball where there's like 182 games, 160 some odd games. I don't even know. Hockey has like 82 some odd games. All these schedules that have way more games. Football has 17 games. And so my team playing in this division, my 17 game schedule might be very different from you playing in the same division in that conference, playing your 17 games. But depending upon who wins the most games, that's going to determine playoff seeding and then who's most likely to get to the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl if you're in the AFC. So it's not fair. It's not balanced at all to begin with based upon who you're going to have to play. So to me, the least that the NFL could do, understanding that the goal is to try to give, at one point I was naive and believed that the goal was to try to give every team a fair shot at trying to win the Super Bowl each year, make it balanced for all the teams. If that is the goal, then if you can't make the schedule fair from who you're playing, at least make when you're playing these guys fair from a rest perspective. Don't keep giving, for example, a certain team, let their opponents have extra rest 7 times, within a season of 17 games, so that you're playing at a rest deficit 7 times. Meanwhile, another team playing in the same NFL might have, I think the Detroit Lions have like 8 games where they have extra rest, or 6 games where they have extra rest. And so as a result, things like that aren't fair. And so I started writing about that and doing detailed research that nobody else was really conducting from outside the NFL. And it got on like Peter King's radar back when Peter King worked in the NFL. And so I would contact him after every schedule was released, and I had several days, because it takes several days to do the analysis, and share some of my gripes with him. And over the last couple of years, it's really amplified and ramped up, because the NFL has their own scheduling office, and they send the bosses of that scheduling office on to do a media tour after the schedule comes out. So his name is Mike North. He goes out, and they call him like the schedule czar. And he goes out and he talks on all the different platforms about how balanced the schedule is and why they chose to do this and that and these types of things. And so I then present I don't want to call it the counterpoint, but like the truth of which teams got screwed by the schedule this year, which teams are going to be benefiting by the schedule this year. And it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything other than the fact that the schedule is imbalanced. And I will tell you, it is easier to win games when you have more rest, especially later in the season. It is more difficult to win games when you have less rest, especially later on in the season. But the NFL doesn't really want to amplify that or talk about that too much. But that is a fact. And different teams get dealt different types of schedules. And so that's how I got into that whole thing. And I'm pretty much at the forefront of the public voices out there who are willing to be as truthful as possible, doing all the research to really share with the fans and the networks and everybody else out there about what really is happening with the schedule on an annual basis.
Yeah, it was eye-opening reading several pages of the book that were highlighting those things. And I just found myself going down the rabbit hole of, wow, this is fascinating. Wow, this is incredible. Wow, this is incredible. And then you came up with a lot of those things, like the net rest and, all of those. You came up with all those terms and all of those different kind of equations and things of that nature.
Yeah, the different things that I look for in the schedule in terms of, I wrote, if you read the book, like the first, introduction, there's a whole article on this. Maybe it's like 12 pages talking about the schedule and, you know, different buckets, different categories, more games with rest than your opponent, general rest edges, what types of rest matter, less rest than opponent, like all these different short week road games, counting those up and doing the math and doing the research on, does this category of statistic matter? Does this category of statistic matter? Like in terms of the buckets that teams might fall in. And, you know, one thing that I found was those bye weeks. The bye weeks aren't necessarily as detrimental or give a team as much advantage as they once did. And so it's important on an annual basis for me to go through and redo my work, double check what has changed with this type of rest advantage. Is it still providing the same type of advantage that it might have been 5-10 years ago? If not, let's discuss it. And to just try to be as transparent as possible with this analysis and whether or not it works, because as you know, I'm a bettor as well. And so like if things change, if things are different, then you want to take that into consideration and not amplify it as much in your decision making as it relates to deciding to bet on these games or not.
So this is my last non-commander question, and we're going to fire away on the commanders. You had a nice little mini rant on social media the other day. There was an ESPN survey done with execs, coaches, scouts, talking about the rankings of all the positions. The quarterback one just came out recently, and one of the things that really got under your skin was Lamar Jackson's ranking. The lowest ranking was 6th. I don't know how that's possible, and obviously you shared your thoughts on that. Looking at your data that you compiled, I was fascinated to see because the perception of Lamar in the playoffs is that he's just not getting it done, right? But then you look at the numbers that you compiled and it tells a vastly different story. The one thing that is really troublesome for me though isn't the one coverage look, the one thing that has worked against Lamar in his career, isn't that somewhat that coverage? Wouldn't you think that would be counterintuitive to playing against Lamar Jackson?
I would. Yes, I would. For whatever reason, Mike Tomlin, these man blitzes, Mike Tomlin has really figured them out. And this is the only reason. If you look at the Ravens and the Steelers over the last like 5 years or so, there's no reason for the Steelers with the quarterbacks that they've been trotting out there since Ben Roethlisberger retired. You know, Ben Roethlisberger always did well in Baltimore and would win some of those games, and some of them were considered upsets, and they'd go beat Joe Flacco, etc. This is back in like the 2000, 2008, 2009, 2010, 2015, etc. However, the quarterbacks that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had and the overall roster that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had over the last 5 years has not really been very good at all. And yet they have the Baltimore Ravens number. I mean, they're like 8-2 against the Baltimore Ravens in their last 10 games. The question is why? Well, it's because Mike Tomlin understands this look to utilize against Lamar Jackson, where he has struggled massively. And for whatever reason, the Ravens haven't figured it out yet. And the counter punch to that, to slow down the man blitzes from disrupting what Lamar Jackson is most capable of doing offensively. And unfortunately, we saw a team like the Buffalo Bills ramp up their man blitz rate from, I'm guessing, I wrote it in the chapter, it might have been around 10% of pass attempts would they use man blitzing in the year to date. And then against the Baltimore Ravens, they jacked that up to like 37% or something like that. And Lamar Jackson's statistics against the man blitz looks are a disaster. He is terrible against them. And this is on the coaching staff. It's no longer, to me, it's no longer on Lamar Jackson. It's not on Lamar Jackson can't handle this. Lamar Jackson isn't good against this. This is something that the coaching staff has seen over and over and over again from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And now other teams are starting to steal it and utilize it into their defensive strategies on on a basis when they're going up against the Baltimore Ravens. The Buffalo Bills did not use it during the regular season game that I think they lost like 45-10, something like that in Baltimore on Sunday or Monday night. They did not use man blitzes. Then they go into the playoff game and jack that rate way up and have success. And obviously we know Mark Andrews dropping the 2-point conversion. The Baltimore Ravens, such a narrow margin of actually losing that game. However, had the Buffalo Bills not used the man blitzes like they did in that game, the Ravens win that game. There's no doubt about it. That was what helped the Buffalo Bills win that game. And so the Baltimore Ravens absolutely, positively must figure it out from a coaching perspective, expect it this year and build in answers already so that you don't have to worry about it. Because what will end up happening is if you then have the counter punches in your arsenal this year that you can use early on in the season to defeat that, then Mike Tomlin and other defense coordinators that are sort of gravitating towards that are going to be like, oh crap, they're beating this now. What are we going to do? And then in a game, if you come out and the first couple of times that you're seeing some of those looks, you're able to beat them if you're the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, then the defensive coordinator is going to shy away from utilizing those later on in the fourth quarter of games. And so you just have to attack them early on in the game. And some of the offense coordinators that I've worked with, when some of the times that their quarterbacks are in situations they've done poorly against the blitz. And if you go back, if you search this term, it might pop up and you'll get an idea of somebody that I work with. But the phrasing was attack the attacker. Like if they want to attack you with blitzes, you have to go and as aggressively attack them back to really neutralize that aspect of the game. If you just allow that to happen and they're attacking you with these blitz looks and you're not really being aggressive right back into their face, it's probably not going to go as well for you. And they're going to continue to utilize it and build on that and then build things off of that throughout the course of the game. But if you aggressively early on the first quarter into the second quarter, attack them when they are at their most aggressive, it's going to put them on their heels and they're not going to know what to do in the second half of games.
Yeah. And I can't wait to see if they do have that counterpunch and do force teams to have to adjust, because that was again eye-opening for me, just seeing the numbers there in my face. It was really startling to see. So now let's transition to the Commanders and talk about some of the things you wrote in the book about the Commanders. You talked extensively about their fourth down percentage rate last year, which was just insane. It was one of the best in NFL history. Removing that anomaly from the equation, what would you say was the biggest surprise that you saw with the 2024 Washington Commanders?
I would say it was their ability to get out early in games. Of course, we're going to talk about Jaden Daniels. Like that's an anomaly in and of itself. It really was exemplified on those fourth downs and in the clutch time situations with him being so level-headed and poised, which is not something that you would typically see from a rookie coming into the NFL, and him just feeling so comfortable in those situations. And I wrote a lot about the virtual reality that he trains with, that I'm shocked that, I'm into tech. It sounds like you are as well a little bit. Like, I'm surprised most quarterbacks aren't embracing that as much as possible around the clock at their home. Years ago, I came up with a thought process that I thought place kickers, because place kickers is even more mental than any other position on the football field, in my opinion. Like, these guys can be solid and then they miss a couple kicks and all of a sudden their brain breaks and they don't know what to do and they lose all the form of confidence, etc.
You likened it to a golfer in your book.
Exactly. Yeah. Like go home, practice in the virtual reality, inside the stadium, hear the crowd noise, understand what it is to walk on the field and to get there and to take your paces back and get set up. And so I don't know why kickers aren't doing this far more frequently, and that technology could be invented. Maybe it already is. Maybe somebody's using it, but it needs to be out there. But Jaden Daniels embracing that technology is so fun to see. And it does give him an edge. There's no doubt about it. So, if we're going to move beyond the obvious, like yes, fourth downs and yes, Jaden Daniels, but something I just wasn't expecting to see was their ability to get out early in games to leads, which is so refreshing to me because that's the way you win games. And you talked about it introing me early on, is a belief that I have about getting out early in games and building that quick lead so that at halftime, the opposing coaches in their locker room are reassessing their game plan entirely and thinking, we have to scrap some of the things that we thought might be efficient. We now have to go to the things that are going to be more desperate because we have to get into this game. And so if your opponent is playing with desperation, they're going to be more predictable, which will help your defense. They're going to be less efficient, which will result in some more opportunities, whether it's punting the ball on fourth down because they were scrambling around too much on their set of downs, or they're going to be going for it more on fourth down. So that desperation is not what you want to be playing with. It's what you want your opponent to play with, and you can force them to do that by jumping out the leads. The Commanders scored, I think the numbers here, 42. They led by 42 points in total over the course of all the first quarters. Add up the first quarter lead. That was the fourth best in the NFL. They led on average by 92 points at halftime. That was the fourth best in the NFL, and a massive difference from the prior year. And so I'm so happy that Cliff Kingsbury is there again and gets to work with Jaden Daniels. My hope, if I was Commanders ownership, which seems like they're on the right track and they're a pretty smart organization, pay Cliff whatever you need to pay Cliff to keep Cliff around. As long as this continues to work out. I know some of these guys want, like, from an ego perspective, to either become a head coach, or they want from a monetary perspective to become a head coach because they'll get paid more. There is no salary cap on coaching. There's nothing that tells you that you can't pay an offensive play caller $5 million a year, $8 million a year, $9 million a year, whatever you might need to pay Cliff to keep him there as long as possible, so that he's not being outbid and lured back to college or wherever else he might go. That's what you probably need to do, as long as this marriage is working, because just having studied quarterbacks so much, this is something not enough people discuss, but it's also very hard to measure. As somebody who tries to figure out how to measure things, it's very difficult to separate a play caller from his quarterback. And statistically, all the statistics for the NFL is like, well, what's his quarterback? Where's he ranked? What's his stats? All of that is just so closely tied with that play caller. And you really can't separate them out. And you could have a good quarterback in a crappy offense without the ability to earn the stats that some of these other quarterbacks might be earning in a much more efficient or effective offense. So I think as long as you can keep Cliff Kingsbury there, and you guys can continue your focus on trying to get out early in games, it's going to make life a lot easier. But that was something I went back on, because when you think about the Commanders last year, one of the things that you might be thinking about is all those close wins that they came back and won, all those clutch games that they won late. But the fact was, like, they were actually really good in the first quarter and the first half of games and putting themselves in a good position. That's why they won 12 games last year. So if you can repeat some of that in the 2025 season, you're going to win double-digit games. You're going to be back in the playoffs. So you just have to stay aggressive in the first quarter.
Warren, you might be a psych major because you're kind of in my head. That's the perfect segue to the next thing I was going to get to. EDSR, early down success rate that you charted in the book, is something that I think a lot of Commanders fans, we've talked about this a lot. We struggled with a little bit last season, but in the games that we were successful, is that, and that's another sidebar question, but did you come up with that term and that whole early down success rate? Did you come up with that?
Yeah.
So that's, again, another awesome.
I invented that one a little, I don't know, it's got to be a decade ago or so. And it was more so as I was trying to handicap the postseason games. Because that's so impactful in those must-win games in the postseason where both teams are trying and they absolutely can't lose. And oftentimes you get more balanced teams, so it might be a more even playing field. You're not going to have like a 17-point favorite against a team that's got one win, in week 12. They're going to be more competitive, and so that early down efficiency is what ends up determining wins and losses when turnovers do not.
When they were successful on early downs, it was 7 of their 17 contests in the regular season that they were successful. According to your statistics on early downs, their success rate was very high in those games. Those were the 7 games, 5 of them were their highest outputs of the season, and 4 were their blowout victories. So I ask you this, how important, and is this something that the Commanders need to be better at in 2025? And how important is early down success, right?
Yeah, league-wide early down success is something that is a little bit underrated and has an edge for teams that are going to focus on that and try to ensure that they are winning on those downs. And what we mean by this is first down and second down. How efficient is your offense at skipping third down? In an ideal world, the way I sort of came up with this is thinking just in reverse order. When are you going to give the ball back to the opponent through a punt? It's going to be on fourth down. Okay, well, when would you be in a fourth down to give the opponent back? When you fail on third down. So the only way to ensure that you're not going to fail on third down, because that's like what you don't want to do. If you fail on a third down, granted, 4th and 1, now teams are going for it a little bit more frequently. But if you fail on a third down, you're kicking the ball the vast majority of the time. So how do you prevent that failure on third down? Don't even get into third down. Don't even put yourself in a third down. Get a first down on a first or second down so that you're skipping the third down entirely. And one of the things that I used to remember is back in the day, you know, you're like me, you used to watch football back in the day as well on your couch, maybe with your parents or whatnot. And you remember they didn't have they don't even do this very much anymore, but like the game reset where they would show you, and it took up the entirety of the screen because they didn't have small graphics with detailed 1080p, you know, pixelation or whatnot. So they would just flash up on the entire screen, like the graphics of the game. And you would have, you know, this team here and the other team there, and it would list out, you know, first downs, third downs, total yards, passing yards, turnovers, score, something like that. And they would pop it up maybe twice a game, 3 times a game, something along those lines. And the announcers would always talk about like the money down on third down and how this team was so good on third downs. And that is what was helping them win the game. But the reality is the team that has a lot of first downs and very few opportunities at third down, like very few attempts at third down, is actually the team that's most likely to win that game. Not just if we were 6, you know, a team could be, I'm just throwing it out there. 12 of 16 on third down, which is a really good third down percentage. But my guess is that if they're playing an opponent who has 4 third down attempts, and maybe they only made 2 out of those 4, but they've only had 4 third down attempts while this other team has 16. The team with the 4 third down attempts is probably winning that game.
Right.
Because they aren't even getting into third down nearly as much. And so the Commanders absolutely need to be better. Most of the teams need to be better, but why in particular the Commanders do, clearly, as you shared and my stats showed, those games where they won early down battle, they were far more likely to have success and win games easily. But beyond that, this is where that fourth down stat comes into play. The fact that they converted 87% of their fourth downs, which was the best in modern NFL history, and they were able to do that without a single quarterback sneak, which was mind-blowing to me in my research. That is not going to be repeatable. And what ends up happening, if that is not repeatable in 2025, you are not going to score as many points. Point blank. If your early down offense is the same as it was last year, but your fourth down offense fails more frequently, you score 0 points when your fourth down offense is failing. And, you know, because they were converting 87% of those, now all of a sudden they have the other opportunity to score a touchdown, kick a field goal, get points on that drive. Yeah. If they are failing, there are 0 points on that drive. To gain points, you have to stay out of fourth down, which means you have to stay out of third down, which means you have to be more effective on early down. So I think it's a big part of the team's focus. It needs to be in 2025.
And, you know, I could hear your animation through your words in the book with their EPA on those fourth down attempts. It's like 54 point something. And you were like, this is insane, right? Like, how much that changed everything. It was like more than like 17 teams in the league's full EPA for every single snap for that team's season. It was insane, right?
I'll just share the number real quick. It was 53.35 EPA was what the Commanders gained on their fourth down plays. And I don't think 54.55 EPA. I don't think people realize that. So expected points, that is a look at how frequently you're going to be converting points on a particular play. And for the Commanders to gain that much EPA, they gained more EPA just on 23 fourth down plays, 23 fourth down plays, than 23 offenses did in all of their plays for the entire season. They gained more EPA on just those 23 plays than the Kansas City Chiefs even. That ridiculous offense, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, in every single offensive play the entire season. That's how meaningful those fourth downs were for the Washington Commanders. And it was insane to me then. It's still insane talking about it now. And the more insane something is, the less likely it is to be repeated. And that's just my concern with when I'm looking. I've done a couple of Commanders shows, and when I'm asked what's my expectation for the Commanders this year, that is the single biggest factor to me. Is I know their fourth down efficiency is going to drop. They don't have a hack like the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles fourth down efficiency might be a little bit worse than it was last year, but it's not going to be that much worse because they still can use the tush push and they can always go back to that. And that has a very high conversion rate. The Commanders, just Jaden Daniels' brilliance. He was passing the ball at Hall of Fame levels. They were running the ball without quarterback sneaks at ridiculous conversion rates. That can't be sustainable. And so if that drops down, they have to figure out another way to get the points on the board. If they average 54.55 or they summed to 54 EPA on those fourth downs, how are they going to make up that EPA? It's got to come on those early downs a little bit more frequently. And the question then becomes like, can it? Will it? Is it possible? Is it a focus of theirs to ensure that that's what happens? And so I can't. That's where they're one of the teams. It's just so hard for me to figure out how many points I think that they're going to score this year and then how many wins they're going to get, because the fourth downs are going to come back to earth for sure. And so they've got to figure out early downs.
See, there you go in my head again. It's segueing beautifully into the next question. So the biggest threat to the Commanders' success in 2025 is what? And I got three options for you. The schedule. And you could look at it a multitude of ways. They got 8 island games, right? A lot of, most of them are at home, which is a good thing for them, but the schedule is a lot tougher and they got a lot more island games. You've got sustainability, and that could be, a wide casting net. Like you just talked about the fourth downs. There's a little bit of luck. And even in the article, when we've talked about this in the offseason, we played a lot of bad quarterbacks last year, right? There's so many different factors. Can they sustain some of those things? Or the lack of defensive talent. That was also something that, we knew as fans, but it's eye-popping. When you see the numbers, this is why I love your book, because when you see the numbers, it changes things. Even though you already know these things, we were so bad defensively last year. And the offense covered up for so much stink on the defensive side of the ball. So of those three things, which would you say is the biggest threat to success for the Commanders in 2025?
Well, I want to go with door number 3. The only reason that door number 2 is a possibility is because who you play matters a ton, and you guys do have a difficult schedule. But I really believe it's probably door number 3. In my opinion, it's a better thing to discuss right now, and that is that I didn't put this in the book, I don't believe, but thinking back to Dan Quinn and what he did in Dallas, the reason Dan Quinn's Dallas Cowboys defenses were on the map, the reason why Dan Quinn got the job in DC, in my opinion, was on the back of the turnovers that their team generated. Those takeaways that they were able to generate in Dallas were something that I was writing about in my 2023 football preview and my 2024 football preview about this isn't sustainable. All these takeaways that they're generating, they're setting records and takeaways. They are consistently plus 10 or better in turnover margin, which absolutely is helping propel the Cowboys to all their double-digit win seasons. If you removed all the takeaways and just looked at their defense, they were far more closer to like league average. They were still slightly above average, but those takeaways vaulted them as to like one of the most formidable defenses out there. They didn't have that last year. I think you guys were 20th in takeaways, in just total takeaways. I want to say it was like 16 or 17. You were plus 1 in
it was
overall
17.
turnover margin. 17. Okay. So that ranked 20th in the NFL, if my memory is correct. You guys absolutely have to figure out a way, because I still believe your talent isn't there. On the defensive side of the ball, the talent isn't there. And this is where the schedule does come into play. You are going to be playing more difficult schedule of opposing quarterbacks, opposing offenses. I look at the list of quarterbacks that you played from week 12 to week 18 when you really got back on track. And I wrote about this in the book. These are who you played, in case you fans out there forgot. You played Cooper Rush, then you played Will Levis, then you played the deadly combination of Jake Hayner and Spencer Rattler for the New Orleans Saints. Then you played Kenny Pickett. Then you played Michael Penix Jr. And then you played Trey Lance. I mean, we're talking about 6 straight games from week 12 to week 18 against backups, against rookies. So that's not going to happen again, most likely in 2025. And still your defense, especially against the pass, and you struggled against the run as well. Like your defense ranked 25th overall in total defensive efficiency. You have to figure out a way to generate those takeaways, generate those turnovers, to flip field position, to help put points up on the scoreboard. I remember like the Cowboys, maybe it was his last year there, Dan Quinn. I want to say they had like 4 or 5 just defensive touchdowns. All right. Like just sack fumbles, running into the end zone, interception returns for 7. If you could get those, I mean, you win games. Those are like one play wins a game for you, more or less, because if all other aspects of the game are relatively even, just that one play, stealing a possession plus putting points up with your offense on the bench, that's very difficult to replicate in any other way throughout the course of a game. So that's my biggest belief is I wish I could say I think your defense is going to be better. I worry about the personnel that you have, and I worry about the schedule that you're going up against. So the only thing that you can do to offset that, A, offensively, you don't give the ball back, but B, when you're on defense, you got to get those takeaways, because they'll flip the field, they'll flip the game entirely.
Yes, yes. Amen. Amen. Did you guys hear him preaching? Did you hear Warren? Brother Sharp preaching to the congregation. Turnovers are going to be the key this year. So now I got to put you on the spot. All right. You set the number at 9.5 for the Commanders win total. Over or under on that total for the Commanders in 2025?
Because I believe a lot in this sounds like it would cut against what my overall thoughts are with analytics and data and whatnot, but I think you guys are going to start quickly this season. I think that game week 2 against the Packers is going to be tough. I think you should be able to handle business week 1, week 3, week 4. That week 3 game, I didn't write about this extensively in the book, but offers a really unique schedule advantage there. Bye weeks begin in week 4.
Right.
Weeks 1, 2, and 3, week 1, you're not going to have any rest advantage over your opponent. But week 2 and 3, that rest advantage that you might have typically is very minimal. You are in a very unique situation against the Raiders, where the Raiders are coming off of a Monday Night Football game week 2 out in Las Vegas, and they have to travel to play you guys on a short week at 1 p.m. early kickoff after Monday Night Football. Whereas you guys will have played a Thursday before that against the Green Bay Packers. So you have 3 days extra rest. The Raiders have 1 day less rest. You have a 4-day rest advantage, and the game's at 1 o'clock for a team from Vegas, as opposed to you guys playing in DC, hosting the game. So that is a massive advantage there. And then, yes, you do play the Atlanta Falcons. I think you could start quickly. My number would be 10 games. I like the fact that 10 wins. So I would probably go over. It is not a win total that I'm going to be betting on, but I'll just tell you, if forced, I would go over. The Philadelphia Eagles in week 18, that's another unique game. Most people wouldn't like it because they would be scared that the Philadelphia Eagles are a really good team. But I would rather play a either really bad team or a really good team late in the season. I don't want to play a team that's like fighting for their playoff lives at that point. There is a chance that the Philadelphia Eagles could be resting their guys because they're already locked into playoff seeding as of week 18. And so I want to be able to play them in week 18. And the week before that, you get to host a dome team in the Dallas Cowboys with 1 day of extra rest advantage for that game on Christmas. And you have 3 days then of extra rest heading into that Philadelphia Eagles game. So it's a nice way to close out the season as well. And I think it's a solid way to start the season. I think there are enough wins in here for you to exceed 9.5. So my general take on the Commanders, and this isn't something that's totally unique to me, I think you win fewer games than you did last year. I think you regress in a number of categories, especially on fourth down. But I think the pieces that you added offensively, like Debo, like a new left tackle, will help your floor stay relatively high. Your defense hopefully generates a few more takeaways. You maybe finish with a worse record. You maybe are playing in as the 7th seed or the 6th seed, but you are making the postseason. And at that point, it's the matchups that were going to dictate how the games end up going in the postseason. In general, I would find it hard to believe that. I know Commanders fans want to see them go to the Super Bowl, but I feel like you're probably not making the NFC Championship game this go around. So you might be better offensively in general than you were last year, but that's going to come on early downs, not on fourth down. And you're still going to be an exciting team. Probably not going to win as many ridiculous games late, but hopefully that's because you're putting yourself in a better situation earlier on in the game that you're not going to need to do that. So still a great season for the Commanders, still a fun season for the Commanders. And the best part about the Commanders in 2025 and moving forward is the fact that you have your franchise quarterback.
I'm about to say, we got Jaden Daniels.
So many other teams out there, they draft a guy last year, they drafted a guy the year before that, and they're not sure, but they probably don't really love him yet. And they're not sure if he's going to be that franchise quarterback. The fact that you guys know for certain that you've got a franchise quarterback, and now you got extra weeks, extra years where he's still on a rookie deal. It's just gravy. I mean, you need to make it count, but it doesn't have to be in 2025. I am really excited to see the future trajectory. You got a new stadium on the horizon as well. Like everything's looking up. Your throwback uniforms are ridiculously great this year. So it's a fun time to be a Commanders fan for sure. And I'll just tell you, that's what a franchise quarterback does for you. And it hasn't been since 20, 30 years ago that there's been like this much collective excitement in my opinion, surrounding a team. There was little buzz and hype when Dan Snyder tried to assemble those dream teams, with all this old talent that was there. And people in DC probably were kind of here now. This is more like true belief in your heart of hearts that this is actually headed in the right direction. This exciting thing to see.
Yeah, without question. Our whole thing is, let's just get us into the postseason. We got 5. If we got 5, we got a shot. You know what I mean? So we're just excited about this, and we just want to see this team do it again, right? Because that's the thing we haven't seen is 2 years in a row. We haven't made the playoffs 2 years in a row since 91, 92. So it's been a long time. So all we're looking for is consistency. Do it again. Show that last year wasn't a fluke. And you kind of alluded to that in the book as well. Man, this was so much fun. I can't thank you enough for your time. You're such a busy man, but to carve out this amount of time for me, I can't thank you enough. Please tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter, your website, but more importantly, this book that is just exceptional. It's a must read for any NFL junkie like myself. Tell them where they can find all of your work.
Well, I got a surprise for you. We'll give all of your listeners the PDF copy of the book. It's regularly $29.99. If you go to sharp.football, it'll redirect you. Just punch in sharp.football or go to Sharp Football Analysis. It's $30 on the website. We'll give it to you for just $1 if you enter the code Louie, L-O-U-I-E. It'll get it to you for just $1. And this is, 586 pages. This is the print copy, which you can get at Amazon. They're actually sold out right now. Yeah. They're going to try to get it back in stock soon because a lot of people are buying it on Amazon, but it's more expensive to buy the print copy, as you can imagine. The PDF copy, though, for just $1, you're not going to get more bang for your buck. You can research, a little bit more on the Commanders, though we covered a ton here. All 31 other teams in the NFL, all the opponents that the Commanders are going to play this year. It's going to help you in fantasy football betting or just general football knowledge and insight. So head on over to sharp.football and don't forget the code Louie. And yeah, that's the best way to get in touch and check out the work here. Obviously, we do stuff all throughout the course of the season, but right now it's all about getting you ready for the season. And for $1, you're not gonna find something that's gonna help you more than that book, in my opinion.
You won't find a better deal this summer than that. Period. And I'm willing to go out on a limb. You won't find a better deal the entire rest of the year than that deal right there, guys. I'm telling you, this is worth your buck. This is worth your time. What are you waiting for? Go over there and go get that PDF copy of this book. You will not be sorry. Warren Sharp, can't thank you enough for the time, my man. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Football time is almost here. I saw you on social media, Birdman hand rubbing over there with the Chargers getting to camp. You're excited. We're all excited. It's that time, my man. I thank you again for your time. Take care of yourself.
Thanks for having me, Louie.
No doubt.
Louie T Network.